Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm 28 years old. I've lived in this small, sleepy town my entire life, and there's a certain comfort in that. I'm a school teacher, working at the local middle school where I've taught for the past 4 years. It's not a glamorous job, but it's fulfilling. I love the classroom, the energy of my students, and the sense of accomplishment I feel when they finally grasp a difficult concept. But even as I stand before my class, feeling content with my work, I know deep down that something is missing. I've been friends with Lily since we were little kids. She's my best friend, my rock. We've shared everything from our first crushes to late-night talks about our hopes and dreams for the future. But there's one thing I've never shared with her, my secret crush on her older brother, Ben. Ben is everything I never expected to fall for. He's 4 years older than U.S. and always the cool, confident older brother. Growing up, he was the kind of guy who never seemed to try too hard, but everyone noticed him. He was always charming, athletic, and seemingly perfect in every way. I can still remember how he used to tease Lily and me when we were younger, affectionate. Teasing that always made my heart flutter a little more than it should have. I knew I wasn't supposed to feel this way about him. He was Lily's older brother. Our families were close, and I was just her best friend, someone who had been there through thick and thin. But somewhere along the way, I'd fallen for Ben completely, hopelessly, quietly. It started when we were teenagers. Ben was always around, but he never paid me much attention, at least not in the way I wanted. But I'd catch him looking at me sometimes, especially when we were all hanging out. I'd feel a knot in my stomach, my heart racing as his eyes lingered. A little too long on me, like he was noticing something he hadn't before. I'd tell myself I was imagining it, that I was reading too much into it. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I never told anyone, not even Lily, about my feelings. What if she found out? What if it ruined everything? I couldn't bear the thought of losing her, of having this secret destroy the friendship we had. So, I buried my feelings deep inside, pretending that they didn't exist, pretending I didn't care. Lily and I had spent years apart during college, and after we both graduated, we reconnected, picking up right where we left off. I'd become more comfortable with my life and routine, but my feelings for Ben? They remained hidden beneath the surface. And every time I saw him, every time I felt the warmth of his smile or the depth of his gaze, it was a reminder of the crush I'd never let myself fully explore. One evening, Lily invited me to spend the weekend at her family's house. It had been a while since I'd been there, and I thought it would be nice to reconnect with her. I knew it would be like old times, quiet, simple, and comforting. But deep down, there was something else that made me feel uneasy. Ben would be there too, and the last thing I wanted was to be reminded of the feelings I had kept hidden for so long. The drive to her house was a blur. I tried to distract myself with the music, but my mind kept wandering. I knew what awaited. Me on the other side of this trip, time spent with Lily, yes, but also time spent with Ben. I wasn't sure I was ready for that, but I told myself I could handle it. I had to. It was just a weekend after all. A chance to catch up, to enjoy the simplicity of life. When I arrived at Lily's house, she greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, wrapping me in a hug and pulling me inside. "I'm so glad you came, Emily," she exclaimed. "It's been too long." "I know, I've missed you," I said, smiling as I followed her into the house. It felt like no time had passed at all. The warmth of her home, the familiar smell of her mother's cooking, the laughter of her younger siblings all created a sense of comfort. But beneath it all, I felt that familiar unease. The tension that came from knowing Ben was in the house too. "Ben's here, you know," Lily added casually as we made our way into the living room. I nodded, trying to act nonchalant. "Yeah, I figured." Ben was sitting on the couch, his attention on the TV, but when he heard us enter, he turned his head. His eyes locked with mine, and for a moment it felt like the entire world stopped. There was something in his gaze, something that made my heart skip a beat. He looked older, more mature, but the familiarity of his presence was still there. "Hey, Emily," he said, his voice deep and warm. "It's good to see you." "Hi, Ben," I replied, my voice betraying the nerves I was feeling. I quickly turned to Lily, hoping to hide the flush I could feel creeping up my neck. Lily sat down beside Ben, and I awkwardly took a seat on the other side of the room, trying to keep my distance. But it was hard to ignore the pull I felt whenever Ben was near. He wasn't just Lily's older brother anymore. He was something more. And I couldn't help but wonder if he could feel the same way, or if I was simply imagining it. As I always did, the night went by quietly, with the three of us reminiscing about old times and chatting like nothing had changed. But I could feel the weight of Ben's presence with me, and every time our eyes met, it was like a spark ignited between us. I tried to ignore it, to focus on Lily and the conversation, but it was hard to deny the tension that was building. I was afraid of what I was feeling, but I couldn't escape it. That night, as we all said our goodnights, I couldn't help but notice how different things felt. It wasn't just a normal visit anymore. There was something unspoken hanging in the air, something that neither Ben nor I had acknowledged, but that was there all the same. As I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake. The thoughts of him, Ben Lily's brother, my secret crush. And for the first time in years, I found myself wondering what might happen if I let myself feel what I had always tried to ignore. The days following my arrival at Lily's house felt like an emotional roller coaster. Every interaction with Ben seemed to pull me deeper into a web of feelings I thought I had buried years ago. Every glance, every smile, every casual brush of our hands made my heart race in ways I didn't know how to handle. It wasn't just the attraction anymore, it was the realization that something was shifting, something that couldn't be ignored. What had once been a harmless crush was now threatening to change everything between us. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. Lily and I spent the next morning catching up, talking about our childhood memories, the places we used to go, and how life had changed since we had last been together. As always, she was full of energy, laughing and telling stories, but I noticed how quiet I had become. My mind kept drifting back to Ben, even when I was trying my best to keep my thoughts focused on Lily. I'd hoped to spend the day mostly with her, away from Ben's presence, but he had a way of always being near. He was constantly in the background, always present. Whether he was casually leaning in the doorway when Lily and I were talking or walking through the house with that same confident stride, his presence was undeniable, and it was beginning to unravel the careful barriers I had built around my emotions. By the afternoon, the weather had cleared up. Lily suggested that we take a walk around the property, a beautiful piece of land that her family had owned for years. It was a peaceful place, large gardens, sprawling lawns, and a small pond at the edge of the woods. I had always loved this spot growing up, and it seemed like the perfect way to relax after a busy morning. We all set out together, walking along the winding paths. Ben was a few steps ahead, talking about something work-related, and Lily and I were trailing behind, chatting about old friends. But even as I tried to focus on the conversation, I couldn't help but notice how often my eyes kept straying to Ben. He seemed so at ease, so confident in a way that only made my attraction to him grow. I tried to push the thoughts away. This was just a weekend, I reminded myself. It wasn't worth ruining everything for a fleeting crush. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore the way my heart fluttered when Ben looked back over his shoulder at me, a playful smile on his lips. When we reached the pond, Lily wandered off to take a picture of the scenery, leaving Ben and me standing there in an oddly intimate silence. The air was warm, and the soft rustling of leaves in the trees only added to the peacefulness of the moment. For the first time since I arrived, it was just the two of us. Ben turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "I haven't seen you like this in a while," he said, his voice low. "You seem quieter than usual." I wasn't sure how to respond. The truth was, I was feeling overwhelmed. The old feelings for him were bubbling to the surface, threatening to spill over, and I didn't know how to stop it. "I'm just adjusting," I said, offering a small smile, but my voice betrayed me. There was a vulnerability in it I hadn't intended. Ben studied me for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You've always been good at hiding what's really going on," he said, his tone more serious now. "But I can tell when something's up." I felt a knot form in my stomach. He was right. I had always been the one to keep my emotions to myself, to hide what I was feeling, especially when it came to him. But this time, I didn't want to lie to him. I didn't want to keep pretending that everything was fine. "I guess I'm just not sure where I belong anymore," I confessed, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "It feels like everything is changing, and I don't know what to do with it." Ben stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the most disarming way. "I get that," he said quietly. "Life has a way of doing that, throwing things at you when you least expect it. But you can't keep ignoring what you feel. Emily, you deserve to let yourself feel something real, something that matters." His words hit me harder than I expected. The way he said it so gently, so earnestly made my heart race. My mind spun in a whirlwind of emotions. Was he talking about what I thought he was talking about? Was this his way of acknowledging the tension between us? Before I could respond, Lily returned to the pond, snapping a picture of the two of us standing by the water. Her laugh rang out as she showed us the photo she'd taken, unaware of the quiet moment that had just passed between her brother and me. Ben straightened up, putting some distance between us, and I quickly masked the emotions that had swirled up inside me. The moment was over, and the tension was gone, at least for now. Later that evening, as the sun began to set, we sat around the table for dinner, just like old times. Lily was chatting about her plans for the upcoming school year, while Ben and I exchanged polite pleasantries. But there was something in the air now, an unspoken understanding that neither of us had acknowledged, but that was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just the attraction anymore. It was something deeper, something that felt like it was building beneath the surface. I had a hard time focusing on anything but Ben. He was seated across from me, looking relaxed and casual, but his gaze kept drifting toward me. Each time our eyes met, I could feel the spark, the tension building between us. Like the calm before a storm, the night passed in a blur of awkward glances and forced smiles. Lily was oblivious to everything, completely focused on her plans for the next day. But I knew something was shifting. Something had changed between me and Ben, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. After dinner, Lily suggested we all watch a movie together. I agreed, hoping that the distraction would help me push the thoughts of Ben out of my mind. But as the evening wore on, it became clear that there was no escaping it. The more I tried to ignore the feelings, the more intense they became. I could feel Ben's presence beside me, as if he was aware of everything I was feeling, even though I hadn't said a word. Finally, as the movie ended, everyone headed to their rooms, and I was left alone in the living room, trying to collect my thoughts. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing. What was I supposed to do with these feelings? Should I confront Ben? Should I tell him how I felt, or should I just keep pretending like everything was normal? Just then, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to find Ben standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Emily," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Can we talk?" The tension between Ben and I had grown to the point where I could hardly think straight anymore. Each time we were alone together, it felt like something unsaid was hanging in the air, something that neither of us could ignore. And yet, I still wasn't sure what I was supposed to do about it. I had tried so hard to bury my feelings for him, to convince myself that nothing could ever come of them. But here I was fighting the undeniable pull between us. It was late. Well, after everyone else had gone to bed, when Ben found me sitting alone on the porch, staring out at the darkened garden. The night was calm, the air cool with a soft breeze rustling the leaves. It felt like the perfect moment for reflection, and yet I couldn't stop my mind from racing. I kept thinking about the way Ben had looked at me earlier, how close we had gotten that afternoon by the pond. My heart was still pounding from our last conversation, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. I heard footsteps behind me, quiet but deliberate, and I knew instantly it was Ben. He was never the type to sneak around. When he approached, you felt his presence, as if the ground itself shifted when he walked. "Emily," he said my name softly, almost like a question. I turned to face him, trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach, but it was no use. The moment I met his gaze, everything inside me stilled. "Hey," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "What's up?" He didn't sit down beside me immediately. Instead, he leaned against the railing of the porch, his eyes studying me as if he was trying to figure something out. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in the way he looked at me that made my heart race. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," he began, his voice quieter now, almost like he didn't want to break the fragile moment between us. "About not being sure where you belong, about everything feeling uncertain." I swallowed, the weight of his words settling in my chest. My mind flashed back to that conversation by the pond when I had admitted how lost I felt, how vulnerable I had been with him, and yet how relieved I had felt afterward. Maybe it was because in that moment I had finally let someone else really see me for the first time in a long while. "You don't have to worry about me," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I'm just figuring things out." Ben took a slow breath and nodded, but there was a determination in his eyes now. "I get that, I really do. But I also know you're not just figuring things out for yourself, Emily." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. "You've been running from something. I can see it. You've been hiding your feelings for years, and I think you've been hiding from me too." My breath caught in my throat and my heart skipped a beat. Did he know? Had he always known? "I don't know what you mean," I said, my voice faltering, even though I knew he was right. I had spent so much time trying to deny the truth, trying to convince myself that I could control my emotions, that I could ignore what was right in front of me. Ben took a step closer, his presence overwhelming. He was standing just a few feet away from me now, and I could feel the warmth of his body, the steady rise and fall of his chest with each breath. I wanted to pull away, to retreat back into the safe distance I had kept between us all these years, but something in the way he was looking at me made it impossible to move. "I know you're scared," Ben said gently, his voice full of understanding. "But I can't keep pretending that I don't feel the same way. I've been trying to ignore it, trying to push it down, but I can't. Not anymore." I stared at him, my mind spinning. I had spent so many years keeping my feelings for him locked away, convinced that I could never act on them. And yet, here he was, telling me that he felt the same way. My heart swelled with emotions I couldn't name: relief, fear, excitement, all at once. "You don't have to be afraid, Emily," Ben continued, his voice softer now, as if he was offering me something that would change everything. "I won't let anything happen that would make you regret this. But I need you to trust me. I need you to trust us." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to do that. What if it ruins everything? What if it ruins Lily's friendship with me? You're her brother. This is more complicated than just us." Ben reached out, gently taking my hand in his. His touch was warm, grounding, and for a moment I felt like I could finally breathe again. "We'll figure it out," he said softly. "We'll find a way." "I don't want to hide this anymore, Emily. I can't." There was a long pause, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. We just stood there, the silence thick with unspoken words and emotions. I could feel my heart beating in my chest, louder than ever before. And as I looked at Ben, standing there in front of me, I knew this was the moment that would change everything. What if we tried? I whispered, my voice trembling as I finally spoke the words I had been too afraid to say. What if we took that leap? What if we let ourselves feel this? Ben's eyes softened, and he took another step. Closer, closing the distance between us. "We will," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know where this is going, but I know it's worth it. You're worth it, Emily." And then, without another word, Ben leaned in, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel what I had kept hidden for so long. His lips brushed against mine, soft and tentative at first, as if we were both unsure of what we were doing. But then something shifted, and the kiss deepened, more urgent now, more real. It wasn't just the kiss of a crush, it was the kiss of two people who had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the right time to let go of their fears and embrace what was right in front of them. As we pulled away, I felt a rush of emotions I couldn't quite process. Fear, excitement, relief, but most of all, I felt something I hadn't felt in years alive. "We'll figure this out, Emily," Ben said, his forehead resting gently against mine. "We don't have to have all the answers now, but we'll take it one step at a time, together." I closed my eyes, leaning into him. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. We weren't alone. And as the night stretched on with the stars overhead and the soft sounds of the night around us, I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same between us again. But maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what I had been waiting for.